Hi, it's approaching the end of the residency interview season, and I think that a lot of people are deciding where they want to go and are having a hard time exactly figuring out what to do and how they want to prioritize things. And so here is my personal experience with making a rank list, just as some inspiration. Take what you like, discard what you don't, but here is just how I did things. Okay, for the non-medical people watching this, being a doctor in the US involves finishing your medical school training, and then from there you specialize by picking a residency program that will train you in that specialty that you're interested in, whether that be internal medicine, general surgery, ophthalmology, neurology, and so forth. In my case, this is coming from the perspective of someone who is in internal medicine wanting to subspecialize in hematology and oncology. The first step in making your rank list is knowing how the rank system works, and there's a really good video by the NRMP on how it works, but basically it boils down to the fact that it's biased towards you. So rank your top competitive programs. Even if it's a stretch, it's not going to hurt you, and it's not going to affect your chances of going elsewhere because the system is biased towards you. So my next major piece of advice is rank every program you interview at, unless you can genuinely tell yourself that I would rather not match at all than match at that program. And I think that it's possible that you might have had a really bad experience with the interview or whatever the case is, where you would say, hey, if I don't match for a year, it's better than matching there. Program might be that toxic or whatever the case is, and your circumstances, but essentially by not ranking it, you are not maximizing your chances of matching at somewhere. Along those lines, if you're fortunate enough to have more than 20 programs that you are ranking, then you have to weigh those out for yourself. But for me, cost of $30 to rank a 21st program is less than the pain of not matching and then being like, oh, I have to do it all again for another year, but that is just me. So now for some specific internal medicine advice. And the first big thing to remember is internists are generalists, even if we want to be subspecialists. And I say this in the sincerest sense that I wanted to do oncology even before matching into internal medicine, but I do recognize it's important that we're not in our subspecialty training yet. And as a prerequisite of that, we do need to be good generalists before subspecializing further, and it works as a foundation knowledge. And so the general advice is that you want to go to a place that will give you a well-rounded internal medicine education where you get to learn a lot about a lot of things. And so with that said, I think getting a well-rounded education in a place that has a lot going on means that there's a lot going on, and there's probably something in your place of interest, whether that be oncology, cardiology, pulmonology, critical care. The places with lots going on where you can get a good, well-rounded education will probably have something in your area of interest. And I think anecdotally, talking to people around me, people do value a diverse experience. People like knowing that you went to a place where you had a good education, where you were exposed to a lot of things. And so this kind of boils down to an argument that going to a big hospital that's a tertiary care site, that is a safety net hospital, it will have a lot of people from different walks of life. There are going to be a lot of different passions going on and a lot of projects where you can possibly get involved with. So this slide basically summarizes into saying that go to a place that has a lot going on. So how do you know that there's a lot of things going on at a given program? Well, obviously do your research on the given programs and see what things they have to offer. But one thing to keep in mind is something called a bed metric. This is something that I was looking up, and basically you just type in the name of the hospital, number of beds, and then you can kind of see where things are. Because the places with a large amount of beds, they generally have a lot of things going on because they'll have a lot of different services and they offer a lot of different services. And that's what you want, You want to be able to see a whole bunch of different things. So this kind of helped me put things into order. These are not the actual names of the top 10 programs that I ranked. And, this is kind of how things boiled down. But then after some evaluation, this is kind of how I settled on my rank list. And you can see that I really did go to the place with the most amount of beds. Sometimes you'll get the advice to just go based on vibes. You'll do the interview, you'll have fun, you'll talk to people, and then feel things out. Go where the people seem to be nice and you had a good impression with. And what I'll say that is important, because if people really can't put on their best face and really invite you into a place, then probably is a big red flag. But my caveat to this is vibes aren't everything. In other words, you can put on a really good show, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best program. It's just one criteria criteria, just like how when you make your application, your step 1 score isn't everything, your step 2 score isn't everything, your research isn't everything. You gotta look at things as a whole and not just vibes, but vibes themselves, while can be important, because if you can't put out a good vibe, that's bad. If you do have good vibes, it's not that hard to necessarily fake. And I'll say it can be harder to fake good vibes when you're talking to many people, but when you're doing just an interview for half a day, sometimes you're only talking to a few people, and that's supposed to represent the whole hospital made out of hundreds if not thousands of employees. It's hard to gauge vibes based on just your interview. What I will say is sometimes it can be helpful to, right afterwards you do interview at a place, just write down your initial thoughts, like a one-liner of like, okay, this is what I thought of the hospital. Just one line. Very brief. I remember when I was making my rank list, there were 2 programs and I was really struggling because one gave off a really good vibe, but one seemed like the bigger institution and it seemed like it had a lot of opportunities. And so I was really stuck, where one place it was suburban, it seemed like it was really nice to live in, and that was very appealing and the residents seemed happy. And then there was the other place where it seemed like, it was this really big tertiary care safety net hospital where there was just so much going on. And, that scope and scale can be very intimidating, but also you worry about being just another number and you're just like, oh, are people going to be close? Are people going to really know each other if it's this big tertiary care center? And I remember when I actually did match into the big program, I was worried initially because I was, worried that maybe it'd be cutthroat, maybe I'd just be another number, another pawn in such a big place. But no, I went there, have great exposure to things that I wouldn't have been exposed to at perhaps a suburban, nice location. And I've got friends. I like working with the people I work with. And if I was able to get these vibes that I have now in the interview, there would have been no debate at all. But this is where I say vibes can be really deceiving and also not necessarily representative because, again, sample size, and it's just sometimes luck of the draw with vibe. So my final take-home point for the video is to make sure you're going somewhere that you feel supported in your development. You're going to be working very hard over the next several years of your residency, and at some point you're going to feel like, hey, if I wasn't in a residency program, I think I definitely would be paid more based on the number of hours I work and the things that I'm doing. And it's at that point where you want to take a step back and say, hey, maybe I'm not being paid the best, then at least I'm getting a great education and I'm developing as a physician, because that's one of the big values that a residency is supposed to provide, where in addition to the monetary compensation for your work, you are also getting non-monetary education and development, and that is something that you can value when you go home and say, hey, throughout all this work, I am becoming better. I am learning a craft. I feel supported in my program and becoming a better physician through this temporary process. So I'm very grateful to be a part of something where I can continue to develop. And there are many things I could have put here, but this was just a card that I had under my bed where I got a thank you card from my program director, and it made me feel good and I felt valued. So yeah, go somewhere where you feel like a valued individual and you feel like you are developing and not just a workhorse, and that will help you through the many difficult days ahead of you. All the best wherever you go. If you've made it this far to ranking programs, then you are worthy of deciding where you want to go. You're all rock stars. Take care. Bye.